So I'm back at my apartment. I call it the Keep. Uh, I want to talk about the generations in America vaguely in this video. So the 1941, 1945 World War II generation, they weren't born in those years, but that's when the war started and ended. Those people, most of them died. Those men, most of them died, and then the rest came back and had children with the women. And then you had the baby boomers. They were their children. And they were the most selfish generation that's ever walked the face of the planet, as far as anybody would know. They were the most selfish. Arguably. They didn't want to give their kids anything. They wanted to hoard wealth, keep it for themselves, and give nothing to the poor. They didn't care. Because their parents spoiled them and made it so, well, they were supposed to be thankful, but they weren't, for the most part. Not everybody in that generation. Obviously, not everybody's like that. And that's what makes the baby boomers so terrible. You might know them by the word boomer. Yeah, they're selfish, and they don't hand out jobs very easily, which is why I'm unemployed right now. That really is why. It's not because I haven't tried to get a job. Even if I tried to get one, I wouldn't be able to get one. Except through this job agency that I'm going through that has to get me a job, or they go out of business, or they change it. They don't really go out of business. It's through the government, which, I don't know. I hear that's a bad thing, but it's like a guaranteed position as long as you can do the job. So a boomer won't hire me, so I need to go through this job agency. So it's my only choice. And that's another reason why they're so fucking selfish. They're very selfish. They'll die with all their money, and they won't give it to their grandchildren. They don't really care. My grandma's not really a great example of somebody who has a lot of money to give away, but she is quite she has a few traits of the World War II generation. As like she'll cook for me, but like she'll cook food and make sure I'm comfortable when I go to sleep. And she's my grandma, you know. She's not a bad grandma, but sometimes she isn't a good grandma. And a lot of that has to do with my dad and his influence over her. But anyway, her generation, for the most part, extremely selfish. What else? Generation X. Arguably also very self-centered's a better word for it, but they weren't really selfish. There's a lot of criminality that popped up. I shouldn't say popped up, but there's a lot of criminality that showed up with Generation X. Motorcycle gangs, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Bloods, the Crips. They all started in the 1960s. as far as I know. As far as I know, okay. What else? The Hispanic gangs, I think they came a little bit later, like the 1970s probably. But yeah, okay, so Generation X, that goes in from the 60s to the 70s. My father and my mother are Generation X. And they were very self-centered, but they gave everything to their kids because they knew that they weren't going to get much themselves from their parents. So actually, I didn't have much growing up for the first 4 years of my life, but then because of my grandparents not helping my parents, and that led to a lot of terrible things that happened to me, which is why I never will forgive my grandmother, but I'm sure I will one day. But not today, and I know they had a place for them, and they didn't help or anything. They just kind of stood by and let what happened happen, but I'm not perfect either, but I don't know. What else? Overall, from what I can tell, Generation X wasn't a very sick generation, is what I might call it. Like they weren't really evil. They might have been a bit sick, like at least the criminals in that, because everybody sort of started turning towards criminality because there's so much common criminality that isn't considered criminality or that is considered normal from the government and from the people, and I'm just going to leave it at that arose in the 60s and 70s. In the 70s, you had obviously free love, so anybody could mate with anybody of their choosing, and they would just meet at parties basically, and then just have sex out in the open. And that led to sex slavery, which I had to deal with when I was very little, and which I can't really talk about that much. For one thing, I don't really know everything about sex slavery, but I've been through it, so that led to that. But it also led to population increase and a lot of millennials being born. And millennials were considered kind of like Generation Alpha is considered like alpha or whatever. They're considered very strong and very like they're going to be a very strong generation when they get older. And millennials were considered sort of the same way in a way, but there were fewer of us who were like that. I consider myself at least somewhat alpha or whatever, but I don't know. I might just be an old man with all these really strong young people when I grow up. Sorry, not when I grow up, when I get older. Sorry, my arms look like noodles right now. I don't know. If I push them together, they don't. There you go. Yeah, Generation Alpha, very strong. But the millennials aren't as selfish as the boomers make them out to be. We're actually very self-conscious of who we are and what we are. And we try our best to be better than what we can. At least that's what I do. I mean, my name's Austin. It's like the word exhausted. I'm always exhausting myself to get something better to happen. And I've failed a million times. So I put all my hope into Generation Alpha. And then you have Generation Z, which there were a lot of alphas. Like, if you don't know what an alpha is, like, just somebody who's very strong physically and mentally, and just somebody who came out right, you know. I can't say that I didn't come out right. Maybe I came out normal enough. Generation Z is the generation right behind my generation. I was almost Generation Z technically, and I have a lot of traits of Generation Z people. Even though I'm technically a millennial, and yeah. Uh, the Generation Z sort of perplexes me. I'm not sure why they called it Generation Z. Probably because they're going to be the last generation before the Hispanics wipe out all of America, because they're going to wipe it out in 18 years or 20 years. The Hispanics are going to wipe out most of America. I don't know. That's what's going to happen. Sorry to say gonna happen. I mean, what I mean by that is that's what's going to happen. But where I live won't be wiped out, thanks to people like me and other people who I won't mention. Even though I might just die immediately, I don't know. If there's ever a war. Anyway, Generation Z is sort of interesting because they're stuck between millennials who are telling them all this stuff that they need to know, and Generation Alpha, who they need to protect. And they don't know whether or not to be alpha from the millennials or like protect the I don't know. It's something like that, you know. They need to do both. I met someone who knows how to do both or whatever. Not how to do both, but you know, like the younger generation needs to be looked after. And I'm trying to look after Generation Z a little bit too, since I'm a millennial. I have a friend who I'm talking to all the time. And he is Generation Z. He's 24 years old. And I'm technically a millennial, but I'm 30 years old. I figure I can not pass on wisdom, but just help him complete his goals on YouTube. And I have a nephew who's Generation Alpha, and I put a lot of hope and faith in him because, and not just him, but his friends, all them, whoever they are. I haven't met all his friends or anything, but I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit neglectful, but I'm probably not missed, so that's all right, I guess. Or maybe I am missed. I don't know. I do put my hope into him, though. Not just him, like I said, but that whole generation. Maybe we'll be taken care of by an AI and we'll have a lot of healthy people. And you might say, hey, Austin, you're not healthy. You have schizoaffective disorder. And I have to tell you, that's just something that a sick society labeled me as. Okay? Whatever that disorder is, it's not really a disorder. It's some kind of spiritual, some sort of like realm, that the spirit realm or something, some kind of shadow realm. It's just something like that. I don't know how to address it yet, but anyway, if you think I'm probably screwed, well, I would be if you thought that. But if you don't think that, then maybe you can stick around and try to help me out. Anyway, I kind of just vaguely explain the generations. Uh, I want to emphasize that baby boomers, are very, very selfish. I couldn't get a job in my early 20s. I couldn't even get a job until my mom said, "Hey, you want to work here?" I talked to somebody. She had to talk to somebody who was Generation X, who somehow got a managerial position to get me a job. And I've worked at a lot of places, but most of them were corporate, like Walmart or McDonald's or a shoe store with I think the name of the shoe store is Journeys. I only worked there for 3 months. And my memory, I don't know, I don't remember things I don't want to remember. So there you go. Anyway, praying and hoping. I'm praying and hoping. I'll try my best to do better. All right, see ya.